This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
It's the Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast for Thursday, January the 13th. Coming up, how much money do the top TikTokers make? And two of the top five are Canadian. Number is going to shock you. We're going to talk about the top 10 places in Canada to work as rated by the employees. But our Throwback Thursday had quite a brush with greatness today. Charity, great win with Eddie Money. And boy, did we ever get a nice surprise on social media.
This is the day. I'm going to mark this day down, January 13th, when we heard, well, I guess it'd be the 12th because she voted yesterday. But yeah, our theme this week was home. And you went with Daughtry's Home. Great song. I went with Eddie Money's Take Me Home Tonight, really because I was hoping I could hear that song. It was one of those earworms from a couple of days ago, and I thought that would be a great song for throwback. And I thought, well, maybe a couple of votes. If we get a couple of votes, just enough to play it, that'd be great. Holy cow. So not only was it great to have all the responses we did, and they were responses. It wasn't just a matter of Team Charity, Team Mark this week. We had experiences shared, thoughts and feelings about Eddie Money himself. People love Eddie Money, including Mrs. Money herself. Yeah. She voted for our throwback this week. And we tried to get her on. Unfortunately, we didn't make that final connection. But it was so cool that she saw it, followed it, and voted on it.
And voted on it.
Definitely a highlight.
That's so good, and we'll keep it up. I've got her on Twitter, and I'm relentless. So we'll try and get her on the show, and then we'll get her on a podcast. So Throwback Thursday is always brought to you by Burger Revolution. Experience flavor freedom for takeout. Visit burgerrevolution.ca. Always helping out the takeout in the restaurants in the area. Our takeout shout out today was for Frankfurt's Finest Meats. If you want to take out but still cook yourself, they've got these saucy Dotties, which is like dill and cheddar burgers. And as soon as I saw dill, I went, Charity's going to lose her mind.
I know. I was very excited when I saw that.
Yeah, dill spice cheddar, hunks of dill pickles, $15 for 6 of them. You fry them up yourself. The family's eating well, and you're helping out local organizations that are takeout shout out today. And I believe, I don't have all the statistical analysis, but I believe that Frankfurt's Finest Meats is the 11th greatest place in Canada to work. We only had the top 10.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, it was certainly top 15. But out came a remarkable list of the 10 best places to work in Canada, and it's based solely on employees' reactions and experiences working there. So isn't this a valuable tool to have in this current climate of what we call resignations? If you had to pick and choose where to work, where you get that good work-life balance and it's you feel valued, that you go to a place where employees say, yeah, this is great. Well, here are the top 10.
Absolutely. And Frankfurt's Finest Meats must be right next to Starboard Communications, because I was shocked that we weren't number one.
Shocked.
But the Glassdoor Employees' Choice Awards were handed out this week for the best places to work. And the number one company actually was a newcomer to this list. They do this annually, and surprisingly topping the list was Dell Technologies, not Apple, not Microsoft, not Google, which is in the top 5, but Dell. And as I said, the first time the tech company has ever even made the list, and it landed at number 1. So I'm not sure what they're doing for their employees, but whatever it is, they better keep it up and others can learn from it because the employees love it. Rounding out the top 5, Keg Restaurants in there. Roche was a pharmaceutical company, Sienna telecommunications equipment, and Google, as I said, at number 5. In the top 10, some other technology-based companies, including Cisco Systems, Fortinet, Desjardins, SAP, and Jazz Aviation. I mentioned Microsoft. It was ranked at number 16. National Bank of Canada, another popular one, it dropped to 21. And the one that fell the most, actually, it fell 21 spots, landed at number 25, as I kind of touched on, Apple. So where Dell is doing everything right, I guess Apple needs to pull up their socks a little bit.
You would probably assume, based on this, because it's this year, that Dell figured out something to help their employees throughout the pandemic. that probably, I'm not going to say nobody else did, but of these major tech corporations, if we're all working from home and using their technology, Dell must have figured something out that the employees said, boy, this is heads and shoulders above that maybe Apple fell down on. But I understand that working for Google is super stressful, so I'm still surprised to see that they're in the top 5.
Well, and much like Dell, they must have figured out something to help their employees to stay connected and I'm assuming be more flexible maybe with their hours and how they're working because yeah, I've heard the same thing. It's very stressful. So to land in the top 5, they're doing something.
There was a time too where the top 10 would be populated by 8 of the banks. Royal Bank, and Bank of Nova Scotia, and BMO, not there anymore. So I don't know if other places like a Shoppers Drug Mart that used to do well. Well, now in the pandemic, I've been in lineup for prescriptions. People are not fun to deal with. The employees are, they're great. But the people in line, it's just a tough place to work where medicines and vaccinations and prescriptions, that's just a tough place to work, and it's probably being reflected in this top 10 list. But if you would rather make your money at home, holding your phone, and we found it on the show today, we're on average, we're spending 4.5 hours a day on our phones. Why do you think 4.5 hours is low?
I just feel like I'm on my phone a lot, way more than I should. To hear it's only 4.5 hours, I think, okay, good. But the way we rely on technology now, our handheld devices, I just thought it would be more. If I'm looking for anything, I go to my phone. If I'm searching for anything, if talking to people, it's always my phone. So 4.5 hours, that actually reassures me that I'm not spending more time on it.
Well, there are a lot of people who are making money off of their phones. Forbes magazine sent out an article earlier this week on how much money TikTokers, the top one, make for gaining the attention of, in some cases, millions of listeners. 2 of them are in the top 5, and Charity, some stunning amounts of money by very young people that they're making.
Oh my goodness. So in the US, 2 of them are Canadian. The highest paid Canadian TikToker is just 19 years old. He's from Toronto. His name's Josh Richards. The influencer has signed deals with both Cash App, Amazon, the Toronto Maple Leafs. He actually helped promote their All or Nothing documentary. And for doing all of that, even though he's still only in 4th place, he earned an estimated $5 million last year alone.
We are doing it wrong.
Yes. We're missing something. We gotta, I don't know, maybe spend more time on our iPhones. I'm not sure. So he landed at number 4, a close second to him when it comes to Canadian TikTokers. At number 5, also the 5th highest TikToker earner was 25-year-old Chris Collins. She's from Vancouver. She signed deals with Hershey and Lionsgate, and with her impressive 42.2 million followers last year, pulled in just under $5 million at $4.75 million in 2021.
Now, the thing is, and I'm coming at it from almost the dinosaur perspective because I'm not on TikTok and I'm trying to catch up, and they're well ahead of it. It sounds like it would almost have to be a full-time job, but in my head I think, well, you're really just updating your own, like Facebook or Twitter, but it's much more than that because it's so content driven.
Well, and I think about what we do, and even from the beginning, it's always in the back of your mind, our day-to-day things. And I've talked about it with you before because you amaze me how you can take picking up kale at the grocery store and make a story out of it. And essentially, that's what these TikTokers are doing. So I'm like you, I think, well, it can't be a full-time job. They're 40-second vignettes, really, but they're constantly coming up with content. So it becomes a full-time job. Much like what we're doing, I would say, but I would think it's almost even more intense for them because everything they do then becomes content for their followers.
Right. I was in touch with my daughter because she has a TikTok and she's working on that as she builds her podcast portfolio. And after you came up with that, I was like, okay, Steph, $5 million. And she said there is a difference between how Canadians are paid and how Americans are paid. So the contract
Oh, really?
situation, yeah, it's a little bit different in every country. And I wonder if it isn't because of copyright issues. So I get that it's TikTok, but if I provide this content, who owns it now? Is it me or is it TikTok? And how should I get paid for it? And you got to be careful. You can't use somebody else's music without, and there's a lot to it. So as always, she set me straight on that Dad, it's not just pointing the phone at you and saying something funny and then waiting for the money to flow into the bank. There's more to it than that. If it isn't a full-time job, at least it is a full-time commitment, like you say, to always be on the lookout and to live in that TikTok world so that you can be one of the leaders and make that kind of money. But impressive nonetheless. I never would have guessed it.
Oh, incredible. It is incredible what they can make.
All right, coming up tomorrow, we're going to have our final day, we believe, of you in Campbellford. Good news, bad news, right? Good news is you're coming back in the studio. The bad news is you got to drive in.
I will take that.
Yes. And of course, the kids will be going back to school on Monday. Fingers crossed, because Bill Glisky in the cheap seats this morning was talking about the fact that for a lot of parents, great news, kids are going back to school. For a lot of other parents, tough news. Kids are going back to school. And as you said, there's the good side for their mental health, for learning, for their routine, get them back in school. The tough side is you're not going to tell us if there's COVID in there and are there enough tests. So there's a little trepidation and a lot of excitement either way when Monday rolls around.
Absolutely.
Coming up, we'll have that on the show for you tomorrow. Jimmy Hollywood is going to have Rumor Days. It's the Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast here on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and find it right here on our social media sites. If you go to any of those others where you get your podcast, just subscribe. You get it in your inbox every day from Belleville, Ontario, Canada. Join us tomorrow morning for the best dad joke you are going to hear on Galaxy of Games for Pieces Board Game Cafe. I'm Mark Philbin along with Charity Brown. Talk to you tomorrow morning on 95.5 Hits FM.